Hey, welcome in. Well, it turns out that leftists have found a new way to butcher the English language. They want to respell the word folks, like F-O-L-K-S, with folks, F-O-L-X. And does this make any sense? Is this constructive in any way? No, of course not. Why are they doing it? Well, it's for inclusion, apparently. It's what they always say, but it somehow seems to work out the opposite of that. Somehow. I don't know. This is a website called For Folks' Sake. So FOLX sake.com. And they're going to explain it to us and why this is so important. It says, what does the term folks, F-O-L-X, mean? Well, I guess if they want us to start using this, they better explain it to us. What's the definition? Folks, F-O-L-X, is an alternative spelling to the familiar word folks. The spelling has been adopted by some communities because it can be used to indicate inclusion of marginalized groups. Now, why do I feel like this would have the opposite effect of inclusion? In fact, that it might be exclusive, in fact, and meant to separate people based on immutable characteristics. Probably because everything they do is actually meant to do that, under the fake goal of inclusion. It never seems to actually be about that. It's weird. Let's see. Folks, F-O-L-X versus folks. Why is it more inclusive than, why is F-O-L-X more inclusive than F-O-L-K-S? And it says here why the standard spelling of it is not gender neutral. It says here, and I guess you didn't realize that either, right? This was probably news to you. That it wasn't gender neutral. You thought it just meant everybody, right? Well, anyway, let's see. It explains it here. Some articles suggest that FOLX is more inclusive because it is gender neutral. This explanation has drawn criticism, as skeptics correctly point out that folks, F-O-L-K-S, is already gender neutral. It makes you wonder why they needed to do this. But they'll explain it to us here. And it'll make total sense. Trust me on that. It'll make total sense. The reason we need to fix F-O-L-X, in addition to the gender neutral folks, F-O-L-K-S, is to indicate inclusion of other marginalized groups, including people of color and trans people. So again, it may come as a great shock to you that that wasn't already the case, right? It didn't just include everybody. The traditional spelling of folks didn't include everybody. That's a big surprise to me. I had no idea. And again, you start to wonder, if there was not any problem before in terms of inclusion, what is the point of this? Maybe it's exclusion. Maybe it's actually dividing people. Maybe that's the point. Okay. Let's see. How can folks, the traditional spelling of it, be used to exclude marginalized groups? And that's the question these crazy leftists asked about everything. How can forks be used to exclude marginalized groups? How can carpet be used to exclude people? Just going to interrupt for 1 second to say, if you like this content, subscribe so you can see more. Thanks a lot. Let's see. For people who belong to these marginalized groups, inclusion cannot be taken for granted. So they make an assertion here, okay? Which is what they do a lot. It's just assumed, right? It's just assumed. If you want to indicate to those groups that you mean to include them, using the word folks, F-O-L-X, can be useful shorthand. Or maybe it can be weird and uncomfortable. Or maybe people don't like you making these assumptions for them. Maybe they don't feel marginalized. Maybe they're just living their lives. But no, that's crazy. As a middle-class white leftist, you surely know better than them, right? Let's see. This is powerful here. This is powerful. One example of how some people use an exclusionary version of the word folks, F-O-L-K-S, and we're just supposed to take their word for it here, is trans exclusion radical feminists, or TERFs. These women, calling themselves feminists, fight for the rights of only women. Only women who were assigned female at birth. In addition, they often willfully ignore the needs of women of color. This last part here is just an assertion. It is meaningless. And, here, these women calling themselves feminists Fight for the rights of only women who were assigned female at birth. Well, I don't know. Maybe they're all biologists. You know what? Maybe they're all just biologists. I don't know. I mean, you know what the thing is? I'm not an identitarian anyway, so I just think that we should advocate for everybody's rights. Just say everybody's equal, and then just everybody gets the same rights. That seems to make sense to me. Oh, and, don't pretend to be somebody's savior, even if they've never asked you to be. How about that? Maybe take care of your own garden first. But anyway, I'm going off on a rant. But I guess the point is here that this doesn't prove anything. What does this prove? That one example, this doesn't mean anything. This is just total gobbledygook nonsense. Let's see. Is it wrong to use the word folks now? Of course not. I think they should follow that with, for now. We're going to make it very wrong, though, in the future, because everybody has to do what we say. But anyway, here they're very reassuring. Of course not. There is nothing inherently exclusive about the word folks. Can you believe this? Honestly, can you believe this? What is this twisted logic here that they're using? These are not the people you want running your life. I'm telling you that right now, okay? So after all of this that we've seen so far, there is nothing inherently exclusive about the word folks. Oh, dear me. But in certain contexts, it can be useful to use this alternative spelling, FOLX, F-O-L-X, to symbolize inclusion of POC and trans people, except, as they mention up here, and it's already been established earlier in this, that the term itself is already inclusive. So what does this mean? So, folks is inclusive, but some articles suggest that folks is more inclusive. It starts to sound a bit like that, from Animal Farm. All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. Well, it's something like that. Anyway, it just sounds like a bunch of BS. Let's see. It says here, use your best judgment. And when it's possible, check in with your marginalized audiences to determine when and if it's appropriate, because that's not weird and uncomfortable and strange and making all kinds of assumptions for other people that you shouldn't be making. Yeah, this is going to be really uniting. Really uniting. Going to bring us all together. So it seems to me like this is not actually something that's uniting or inclusive or anything like that. It is meant to separate people along ideological lines. That if you use that weird spelling, that it signals that you're with them. And then you're one of the good people. Which seems to be, honestly, what pretty much everything the left does. All of their, purity tests and their moralizing and fake piousness. It all seems to be pushing in that direction. To separate people along ideological lines. Anyway, that's all I got to say about that. Please subscribe, like, and share. It really helps me get around the algorithm. If you just like to listen, there's the podcast, Radio Baloney. It's on pretty much every platform, including Spreaker. Thank you very much. I'll see you next time.